Thomas Paine, Sam Adams, Benjamin Franklin. These men spoke up for what they thought was right. From their courage came such documents as the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. From their willingness to speak what was sometimes unpopular but right, we enjoy such liberties as freedom of speech, the right to keep and bear arms, and freedom of religion. There are those who still wish to oppress our freedoms, and there are still patriots willing to stand up and defend life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Men like Zeb Bell, who honor our founding fathers and what they stood for. It's now time for Zeb at the ranch, speaking up and defending your freedoms. Brought to you by Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers and all of the other great advertisers on the program. And now, Zeb Bell.
A son asked his mother the following question: "Mom, why are wedding dresses white?" The mother looks at her son and replies, "Son, this shows your friends and relatives that your bride is pure." The son thanks his mom and goes off to double-check with his father. "Dad, why are wedding dresses white?" The father looks at his son in surprise and says, "Son, all household appliances come in white. The husband is still in intensive care, and the prognosis is not good." Here comes Kate Smith, and God Bless America, followed by a patriot, and we've got a special patriot this morning. Oh, good morning, Zeb at the Ranch. I'm Zeb Bell. Welcome after a 4-day respite. And our major sponsor, of course, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations, along with some of our great advertisers, Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More at 459 Overland in Burley, and Western Waste Services, always at your disposal, 734-6969. And now, without further ado, and by the way, I just want to say this up front to this lovely lady. Gina Jameson is also a great sports fan, and I appreciate everything she does and says. But I'm going to say this up front. She can agree or disagree. I think, my dear Gina, that Boise State University and Idaho Vandal fans are in for a long season.
If the opening season was or the opening game of this season is any indicator, yeah.
You will not hear me boast about Boise State University after the slovenly, pathetic game they played against Washington.
Ditto on the Vandals. Oh, that was such a slaughter.
You know, really, when they play each other, they could possibly just eliminate each other. I mean, it was terrible.
It was awful, and, you know, of course, the Vandals, I mean, great first drive, and then after that, that was the game.
Well, you know, Boise State, I just want to say this, and I know we've got a pledger waiting, but Boise State has a brand new offensive coordinator. Please, fire him. It's terrible.
I know.
Oh, Lordy.
It was awful.
Oh.
Okay,
Who's going to do our pledge?
Little Miss Abigail.
Oh, I love that little gal.
Yes,
Good morning, Abby. How are you?
Good.
All right, give us the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You just get better. I mean, you just get better and better and better. And my goodness, that was great. Thank you, Abby. God bless you and your family, okay?
Okay.
Thank you so much. I love you. Bye-bye. Oh, she is such a sweetheart. Let's see, what have we got cooking here today? All kinds of things. I better get started right now and tell you that it's time for the weather. Is Michael on the line with us?
Yes.
Ah, good. Michael Rogers is on the line and waiting for us. And, of course, the weather is brought to you by Rock Creek Growers on the corner of Maxine Lane and Irene Streets in Kimberly. Good big sale on all the plant materials going on, and they have, of course, everything you're looking for, all those special pots, everything. They've got it at Rock Creek Growers. Going into the fall of the year, you've got to stop in and see 39 acres of heaven right there on the corner of Maxine Lane and Irene Streets in Kimberly. Call them, 423-6800. Rock Creek Growers. Here now is the best weatherman in the world, Michael Rogers, weather.com.
Finishing up the
North American monsoon. Morning, everybody. Hope you had a nice holiday. And what am I talking about? Well, that seasonal shift of winds when we get into summertime. We're going to finish up our mid-September, so we are into September, and my point of talking about the North American monsoon is that we got showers in the forecast all the way to Thursday night, and we'll come out of it on Friday. Showers today, scattered showers from Tuesday, I should say from the rest of the week all the way into Thursday night. Then you're going to come out of it Friday. It'll be clear Friday evening, and Saturday is looking good. And the beauty of our weather for this week is, in fact, the temperatures are not going to be hot. We're going to pretty much stay in the 80s all the way through Sunday. So there you have it. Enjoy the weather. Enjoy the Boise State Broncos and the Idaho Vandals. The only weather you got.
Oh, Michael had to get that little jab in there. Brought to you by Rock Creek Growers on the corner of Maxine Lane and Irene Streets in Kimberly. The world's greatest weatherman, MichaelRogersWeather.com. You stop into Rock Creek Growers today and visit with the Anderson family. They've got everything for the beautification of your property. Well, good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Well, good morning, wandering traveler.
Well, my dear friend, Alan, how are you?
Doing great. Hey, Polly wants me to tell you and all the lunch bunchers, thanks for that lovely card. That really impressed her. And
Well,
she's feeling good.
We just absolutely miss her, and we can't wait to get her back over to Lunch Bunch and have her sitting at your side.
Well, maybe we can get her there this next month. So anyway, there was people there that hadn't been there forever.
I know, and it was really a treat. And even though they got there a few minutes late, it was a treat to see the Blaneys show up.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
She really appreciates it, and thanks a lot, lunch bunchers.
Oh, Al, you and Polly are special. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay, have a good day.
All right, buddy. May I take just a moment, and I mentioned this to Gina before we went on the air this morning. And in this business, who we are and what we do is often criticized, and people get mad at us, and they don't like it when we voice our opinion, and some people will do everything they can to backbite us, etc. But I told Gina that, and I'm not ashamed to admit this, I wear my emotions on my sleeve a lot of times, and what happened at Lunch Bunch last Thursday, a lot of people didn't see, a lot of people didn't perceive, but it happened right after the Pledge of Allegiance, our prayer, and also the beautiful voice of Linda Croft singing the national anthem. I had just sat down in the chair, and a Hispanic gentleman walked up to me and stood over me and said, "Who's in charge here?" And I looked up at him and I said, "Well, I guess that would be me." And he had tears in his eyes, and all he said was, "Thank you. Thank you for your patriotism." And he turned around and he walked away. And I would have given anything at that juncture. I tried to stop him. I said, sir, and he kept walking away. I just wanted to say thank you for his kindness, and I wanted to say thank you for his Americanism, if you will, in thanking us for our patriotism. And if he's listening out there this morning, I mean this when I say it. God bless you. God bless you. Calls welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. You know, I mentioned to Gina before we went on the air this morning, I said, we try to be callous sometimes and not get mad or take things that are kind of hurtful and hateful against us. And then when something like this happens, boy, I mean, that gentleman was so nice. That meant a lot to me. It really did. Daryl's Cleaners, 1223 Albion Avenue in Burley. Don't forget they can clean anything. As a matter of fact, the other day we went down there and Deanne took in a bag of clothes of our Rumply Crumplies, probably the size of a, I don't know, it was about 6 by 9. It was just crammed full of clothes. And we got to get over there and pick up our clothes, and I know that they're going to be coming back looking brand spanking new. You stop in, you'll see what I mean. Daryl's Cleaners, 1223 Albion Avenue new and Burley, absolutely the best. Caller, I'll be right there. Don't go away. And don't forget, too, also, somebody else that absolutely is the best, and that's SafeLink Internet. Yes, SafeLink high-speed Internet. I'm telling you, they've got all kinds of new high-speed Internet packages available for you, professional installation. I want to stress that word, professional. Very nice people that know what they're doing at SafeLink Internet. You give Shane and the rest of them a call today, 677-8000. That number again, 677-8000, SafeLink Internet. Absolutely the best. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning, Zeb. I've been analyzing this this Syria situation and looking at history and so forth. I mean, we would be totally crazy to start bombing in there, and not to think that we're going to have not put boots on the ground. I mean, you know one's going to lead to the other.
Adrian,
and,
let me interrupt you right there and ask you a couple of poignant questions. Number one, you're a student of history and you're a student of current events, and I really take enjoyment in having you on this program discussing various things. I have never seen a more transparent attack in my life, if there is going to be an attack. This idiocy and incompetency of Obama, first of all, stating what he's going to do, when he's going to do it, and how he's going to do it, and warning the enemy, and then backing up, backing off, acting like, quite frankly, a coward, and then saying he's going to talk to Congress, and basically, I think, shifting the blame over to Congress. I've never seen such a mess in my life. Your comments?
Well, yeah, there's no leadership here, and unfortunately, the mess over there, go back, if you want to go back to the history, the Shah of Iran was our friend. He was a dictator, yes, and probably ruthless in many ways, but he was our ally. And Henry Kissinger in our State Department way back when got him out of there, and guess what? They brought back an exiled Ayatollah Khomeini, who was violently hateful of America. Mm-hmm. That was really a first great move.
Yeah.
And so we also did the same thing in Rhodesia. Henry Kissinger was involved into that situation. They used to feed. They were the breadbasket of Africa. But anyway, back to the Syria situation. I can tell you, we have those people have been involved in civil war for centuries. And for us to even meddle in there, we don't even know for sure who really set off the gas.
Yeah, and we don't, right now, also what we don't know, Adrian, is we don't know who, honestly, we would be backing and or supporting. And if it comes down to where we would be backing and supporting the Muslim Brotherhood, what kind of incompetency is that?
Well, and see, that's exactly what happened when we got rid of the Gaddafi and so forth.
That's right.
Over there in the Middle East. We ended up jumping out of the frying pan into the fire.
Well, why did we wait? Why did we wait 30 months? Really, why have we waited all this time?
Yeah, right. And so all of a sudden, we feel this urgency, and there's been 2 million refugees, mostly half of them children, fleeing Syria. This has been going on for a long time, and so all of a sudden there's this urgency. But I urge everybody out there, get hold of our congressional people, get on the internet. You got friends around the country, and have them say no, emphatically no military strikes over there, because it's not going to accomplish anything except create more hostility toward the U.S. It's not going to accomplish anything.
No, I'll tell you what it is going to accomplish. I'll tell you what it is going to accomplish. It's going to accomplish another plan of so-called cap and trade. And I'll tell you how. This man, this insidious president that we have, that I absolutely dislike and distrust, has stated when he first came to be running for president in the first term that he wanted to see energy prices skyrocketing and gas prices be on the same norm as Europe. I'll tell you what this is going to do. If we attack Syria, you can bet your bottom pair of shoes that we're going to see attacks on the oil pipelines and the shipping oil ports, and we're going to be seeing the Straits of Hormuz absolutely shut down. We're going to see the Suez Canal shut down. We're going to see a doubling of oil prices in this country overnight.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And so, like I say, from the standpoint of keeping the military over in the area, those are the pinch points and so forth we should be protecting. But as far as bombing Syria, who do you bomb? I mean, I think both sides are, just one as guilty as the other. And so, the lesser of two evils is still evil.
That's right.
So, folks, get hold of your people out there. And I'm often asked, and I run into people at the fair, and they says, how do you know the information you do? I said, well, I do a lot of reading, but I said, you got to get on the internet. I said, you won't find it in the mainstream media. That's just propaganda mostly. And I said, read thenewamerican.com. Get daily articles on these, and I'll tell you, they've got some fantastic people. There's also Eagle Forum.
Yeah,
those two groups, people need to be informed so they can make intelligent decisions.
I agree with that, but there's one other thing I want you to comment on real quick. Make it a short answer because I got a commercial break. The door on chemical weapons has now been opened. Whether the good guys, bad guys, whoever opened that door, it's now been opened. And this door has got to be closed somehow now, with the supposition that whoever has them will never use them again, or we will target and obliterate them from the face of the earth. Because right now, Adrian, with chemical weapons being used, it could be used, taken, and controlled by any and all the bad groups in this country and hold the world hostage.
Well, you're absolutely right. And the thing is, with the satellite and the intelligence we supposedly have over there, we should know where those stockpiles are.
That's right.
They know everything about you and I's conversations over here. Surely they have the ability to tap into what's going on over there.
I agree.
So that's the whole thing. They tell us these things, but Obama is one big Pinocchio liar, and he just wants to put everybody else on the line. He won't take responsibility for being the leader of this country, and this is the greatest country on the face of the planet, and it's being destroyed by these socialists and Marxists like himself.
I agree. Anyway, Adrian, God bless you for your call, as always. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate it.
Have a good one. Take care.
He's spot on. And I'll tell you something that really offended me. And don't you dare call me and say, well, the president needs some R&R. No. Don't go there. While this is playing out, and we don't know what's going to happen, America is in limbo. Our stock market is playing yo-yo right now, not knowing what to do. The future's trading, everything in a mess. People are losing money. People don't know what's going to happen in the Middle East. They don't know what's going to happen to their businesses, etc. Then Obama goes and plays golf. Leaves the White House and goes to a golf course and plays golf. I am just offended by this man. I don't like him. I have never liked him. I don't like his ideology, have never liked anything about his ideology or his politics. There. Go ahead. I know you simpletons out there that are of the left persuasion. Oh, you're a racist. Never mention anything about color, my friend. This man is so insidious. The world no longer respects us. The world no longer looks at us and says, whoa, wait a minute, we better not mess with the United States. No, they're laughing at us. And right now, with this slipshod approach, the book The Amateur by Edward Klein spelled it out. This man is not fit to hold an office. This man, Obama, should be doing nothing but running for a local dog catcher job. This slipshod approach to, we'll tell the enemy what we're going to do. Assad, we might bomb here, and we might bomb there, and we might hit here. Oh, yeah, well, that gives us time to get out of Dodge City. We'll clean up, and whatever you hit, it's not that big a deal. Why tell anybody? This is idiocy personified. Don't forget Ramsey Heating and Electric at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley, 678-0459, open 7:30 in the morning. And I got to tell you that next week on the 11th, do not miss. We're going to be starting early in the morning. Now, tentative plans are to have a breakfast right outside the door, George Mass, biscuits and gravy, at 7 o'clock. It's going to be absolutely phenomenal. It's Patriots Day, and also salute to farmers. Don't miss a minute of it at Ramsey Heating and Electric. Wow, do we have fun every year we put this on. Don't Don't miss it, okay? Ramsey Heating and Electric, next Wednesday on Patriots Day, 9/11. Don't miss this. And you can stop in all the time for all your electrical needs at Ramsey Heating and Electric, where they provide warm winters and cool summers, 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning. I have a strong feeling like we are leaving someone out. We shouldn't just be hitting Obama. We should be giving syrup, Hill from breakfast to supper.
There are so many people involved in the background of pulling the puppet strings, Helen. You're right. I mean, I have a lot of animosity towards George Soros, a lot of animosity. And there are others on the left that absolutely, I think, are their mission in life is to destroy this, the greatest country with the best constitution ever in the world's history. This mess in Syria, Helen, I'm just going to be very honest. You're a dear friend. I cringe as to the enormity as to how big this problem can get.
Oh, it's worldwide. It's worldwide. And the only thing that's going to stop it is the second coming, and that can't come soon enough for me.
I would have a great penchant for believing everything you said and in total agreement. Helen, thank you, and I appreciate you and Dal. You're dear friends. Thank you. God bless you. Thank you. Don't forget our friends at Valley White Home and Ranch. Oh, my goodness sakes, they've got everything over there. All your feed needs. Now they're getting ready for fall. They're getting ready for fall. You got to check out all their Carhartt jackets and all their vests, and you got to check out all your pet food. Kind of start stocking up a little bit, you know. And then don't forget, too, they got all your, like I said, winter clothing, and they've got great fishing equipment over there in their special section just for the fishermen. They've got all kinds of great items. And I'm going to be telling you starting tomorrow, they're also going to have something very special on Patriots Day, 9/11, at Valley White Home and Ranch, 910 South Oneida in Rupert. Don't you forget it, okay? Great people. Calls are welcome and appreciated. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. A complete flip-flop by this administration. And I'm just really concerned as to the ramifications and repercussions this is going to have on the rest of the world forever. We'll talk more about that and some other subjects in just a minute, but right now I also want to tell you about Travel Lube Supply. Oh boy, they've got all the grease gun supplies, Lincoln cordless grease guns, and the grease to go with it, window wash for all the trucks at Harvest, bubba ropes. They got all the bubba ropes, and all the air filters they can clean. They can save you money. Jim was telling us about this on the phone the other day. Don't forget, they can clean your air filters, reuse them, clean your air filters, reuse them. Save money. Why throw them away? Get a hold of them today. And their location, of course, 1050 West 203 South in Hayburn. You better believe it. Travel Lube Supply, 438-8730. It's time now for the Pacific Steel and Recycling Ag Minute at 320 West Main in Burley. These are wonderful people that can help you with your projects of recycling. Right now, the Ag Minute, and then I'll tell you more.
Today's Ag Minute brought to you by the Capital Press, the West Ag Weekly.
USDA's National Agricultural Statistics Service will resume milk production quarterly producer surveys in the new federal fiscal year, which begins October 1st. NASS suspended the surveys in April of this year to meet the budget reductions required by sequestration. The agencies use information gathered in the quarterly surveys along with various sources of administrative data to establish the monthly milk production estimates. With the quarterly surveys, the dairy cow and milk per cow statistics will once again be available. These are critical data points of interested parties to forecast future milk supply, USDA stated in a press release. The program will resume with a late September mailing of the survey form to producers and will release the resulting data on October 21st.
For more agriculture news and information, turn to the West Ag Weekly, the Capital Press, and capitalpress.com.
For all your recycling needs, don't forget anytime, all the time, Pacific Steel and Recycling. They pay top dollar for scrap iron, tin, cars, auto, stainless steel, aluminum, copper, and so much more. And they're so doggone helpful. Nice people. 678-2321. Pacific Steel and Recycling, 320 West Main in Burley, bringing you the Ag Minute. All right, give us a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I got to ask you a question. I'd like you to answer this for me, please. Do you care, or are you at all concerned? Do you care, or are you at all concerned that you and I may be offending someone when we say the Pledge of Allegiance and use the term under God? Now, I'm going to very bluntly say, no, I don't care if I offend someone. God and my tribute and praise and belief in God is more important than somebody else's hurt feelings. I will never change saying under God. And if it gets to the point where somebody calls the radio station or a group of somebody's calls the radio station and demands, he's got to stop that, it offends me, I'll say it even louder and emphasis even more on the terms under God. I will not change. Atheist parents in Massachusetts are at it again. They're at it again. They are seeking to stop recitation of the pledge in public schools, even though no student is required to recite it, because the atheist students claim to be offended by simply hearing the words under God. Now, caller, I'll be right with you. Then let's have a countersuit. Let's make this a big puddle of mud, shall we? I'm offended by certain TV shows. Stop those TV shows. I'm offended by transgenders and their demands. Stop the transgenders. I'm offended by Planned Parenthood and their lies that they perpetrate to the public. Stop Planned Parenthood. We can make our demands of stoppage also. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Yes, as far as I'm concerned, if the people don't like and listen to me say the pledge, just shut the hell up and walk outside.
I am not going to change. I'm not going to weaken America, its patriotism, its value system, its morality. All of that is under attack. And when I listen to these deadbeats that are atheists that say, well, it's offensive when I hear it. I know I don't have to say it, but it's offensive when I hear it. I simply don't care.
And as far as I'm concerned, I really love that little Abigail when she does that pledge. I wish there was more kids like her, because that is what our America is going to be. And for hell's sakes, get off this stuff, take God out of church, and to put prayers back in there. Hang in there, Abigail, and keep up the good work.
Very well said and stated. That little gal does such a wonderful job. We really appreciate her. Al, thank you so much.
You bet.
But how many people will weaken? I wonder how many school systems will weaken. I wonder how many weak-kneed principals and superintendents will go, oh, please leave us alone. We'll change it. We'll stop the children. There is no courage anymore. There is no courage anymore to stand up and say, this is the way I'm going to do it. If you don't like it, A, don't listen, or B, leave. Your microphone is open.
Yes, it is. First and foremost, you know what? We have the freedom of speech. They have the freedom to plug their ears. Secondly, don't take God out of the schools. Don't. That's why, and honestly, that's why I send my son to a private school. Can I afford it? No. Do I do it anyway? Yes. You want to know why? Because he's having a great moral foundation built upon him.
Absolutely. And here's something else that you should know about. Now, I don't know if you've heard this story or if you've reported on this story, but UCLA student government has passed a resolution at the campus of UCLA in California that you are illegal and against the law if you as a student use the phrase illegal immigrant. Yeah, I'm not kidding you. I looked at this and I laughed. The UCLA Undergraduate Students Association wants the term illegal immigrant banned because its members say the phrase is in violation of the human rights enshrined in the U.S. Constitution. Now, wait a minute. Listen to me just a second.
Okay.
The idiocy and incompetency of these students that are going to school to get a higher education saying something so frivolously stupid as the phrase is a violation of the human rights enshrined in the U.S. Constitution. Show me where it talks about illegal immigrants in the U.S. Constitution, and also the U.S. Constitution is for its citizens only.
Yes. What professor is backing this?
It doesn't use the name of any professor per se, but it says the student government of the UCLA Undergraduate Students Association.
So they would have advisors who are professors.
Yeah, but Gina, the whole thing is, they seem like when they get into college at certain parts of the country, whether it's the University of Massachusetts, where we hear these dumb, stupid, frivolous things be created about taking under God out of the pledge, or whether it's on the left coast of California with UCLA or the University of, Berkeley, California, Davis, etc.
Mm-hmm.
All these colleges come out with these terms where they want less of our freedoms that have been afforded to us through blood, sweat, and tears of our forefathers.
And see, here's what I don't get, is they don't get it. They don't get it. Okay, I am all for free thinking, and I am all for learning in the higher education setting. I've done it for years, and, I truly believe in our higher education system. However, know what you're learning, and honestly, if you're going to be a free thinker, you got to think out, all of the scenarios.
Well, if you're saying that you're offended by the term under God, okay, and you want to stop the pledge with those words,
right,
then I suggest, and why are we being such cowards on the moral right? Why don't we start suing these people, like certain television shows on television, or suing the transgenders, the gay, lesbian, and transgenders for their demands of encroaching on our young people, our sons and daughters, by using the bathrooms of their choice. I'm offended by Planned Parenthood and the lies that they've perpetrated about abortion. Why don't we start saying we're offended by this stuff and really tying the courts up with frivolity?
We need to, because you know what? We are so complacent. We are so complacent to say, oh, well, okay, whatever. But no, we need to be forceful and say, okay, fine. If you're offended about this, well, then I'm offended about that. And if you're offended about this, well, then I'm going to be offended about that, and that.
I think, honestly, that if someone in this audience calls Kimley and says, I want that bell removed because he insistently goes on every day and says the pledge and has people come on and say under God, and that offends me. I think Kim, honestly, and I know him well enough, probably would tell the caller, stale cookies, have a good day.
He would get a giggle. He'd pat you on the back and say, good job, Deb.
I agree.
That's exactly what he would say. We've got George, either that or Donna.
Okay, just a second. I'll be right with you. I've got to tell everybody, JB's, we had a wonderful lunch bunch over there at 136 East 5th North the other day. Daniel and the rest of the staff. It was absolutely phenomenal. Deanne, I forgot what the special was, that Philly sandwich, right? It was really good. I didn't have it. I had my diet special. But Deanne had the Philly, and it looked really good. And you can stop in anytime, all the time, for the best of breakfast, lunch, and dinner at JB's in Burley, the home of Zeb's Lunch Bunch, and just the service is phenomenal. JB's in Burley, you stop in and see them today. Caller, good morning, you're on the air.
Well, good morning, Mr. Bell. How are you?
I'm upset as usual.
Well, me too. Watching the news last night, why in heaven's name are we, the United States of America, the greatest power in the world, just about, bowing to this Neanderthal who thinks he can run this country? He's destroying our country. And you know what? Some of our Congress and our senators are doing, they're following in his footsteps.
I will say this, and this scares me. Two of the least competent senators are following him like a dog after a fire hydrant, and that happens to be Lindsey Graham and John McCain, and I have no faith in those two people whatsoever.
No, they've turned tail and tucked it between their legs. I was so disgusted. You know what? We do not need to go to Syria, but you know what? The president has no credibility with our allies or our enemies. He told them that if they struck with weapons of mass destruction, that there would be a consequence. What the heck has he done? He's taken he's taken 2 vacations, and he's getting ready to go over to the summit meeting, whatever.
I got to tell you something about this too. While he's over attending, answer this one. While he's over there for the GO summit meetings and everything else, it's been reported that he, Obama, is going to meet with some of the gay, lesbian, and transgender groups in Russia, trying to persuade Putin and others in Russia to be more accepting of the gay, lesbian, and transgender lifestyle. What kind of idiocy is this?
Well, it just goes to show that we, the people, I didn't vote for him. I wouldn't vote for him ever, not because of his color, but because of his background. It just goes to show that we, the people, are becoming so complacent that we're allowing people that we put in office to ruin us.
Well,
I don't know where we're going to end up. I hope it gets better. But until we impeach this creep and all his cronies, I really believe that the congressmen that are following in his footsteps now, I really believe that they are afraid of the Muslim Brotherhood.
Well, let me ask you a quick question here. You know, you talk about the lack of morals and the lack of responsibility for this man, this administration. He's going to be going over there and talking to another country's groupage of gays, lesbians, and transgenders and trying to persuade Putin and Russia to be more acceptable. Let me throw this at you, my dear lady. Right now in Chicago's schools, they are pushing through a mandate to be teaching sex education to kindergartners and the acceptance of gay, lesbian, and transgender lifestyles as being normal. And the parents back in Chicago have nothing to say. It's been mandated, and the parents are outraged. I'm furious about this.
Yeah. I would definitely pull my children out of school.
Amen.
What are they thinking? Kindergartners, they're just barely starting out.
They can't even read or write, and they're being taught sex?
Yeah, like we need more or less morals in this country, starting with our babies.
Please. I got to run, but Donna, thank you for your call. Thank you.
Have a good day, my friend.
You know, and before I do my commercial, I've got to go to the mother of a 6-year-old boy because I know she's chomping on the bit to say something.
God.
I mean, she's coming down the home stretch, and Secretariat's about 5 furlongs behind her. You've got to be upset about this.
Okay. First and foremost, if that's the kind of lifestyle that they want to lead, fine. Do it behind closed doors. I don't want to see it, and I don't want my son
Locked
to see it.
doors.
Period, point blank. No, you cannot share my son's bathroom either. Look down your pants, know what gender you are, and use the subsequent bathroom to that use. Secondly, okay, with our president going and meeting with these activists in Russia, come on, really? We have a lot of other more pertinent things that we need to be doing over there besides talking with these...
You saw what happened in Africa when he tried to do that. The African leadership shut him up.
Okay, you know what? This is not his country that he's going to.
Yeah,
this is somebody else's country. You cannot push any sort of propaganda and political spin on somebody else's country and somebody else's turn.
I don't blame Putin for not liking Obama. I don't blame him for wanting to take a poke in the nose at Obama. You know, this is ridiculous. But go back to this deal in Chicago for a minute. I mean, they're trying to promote gay, lesbian agenda along with the transgender agenda as being part of a quote-unquote normal family structure. It's absolutely insane.
Since when did that become normal? I want to know when it became normal.
With the mandates from the Secretary of Education, Arnie Duncan, and some of these other complete frisbees in office back there. I'm
sorry, but it is, you know what, if that's what they want to do, keep it behind closed doors. You know, use the appropriate bathrooms to what you have with the plumbing that God gave you with. And do not force your lifestyle on anybody else.
Johnny and Susie don't even know how to sit down for crackers and milk, and you're trying to teach them something so insidious as this? It's ridiculous.
I'm kindergarten, preschool age. Whoa, back up the bus, Gus, because I'm sorry. I didn't even learn about that stuff until I was 13 years old.
Oh, I'm telling you, as parents, we ought to be outraged. We need to be outraged. And you, as a mom of a 6, and I'll tell you something, Arnie Duncan, and also all the other people connected with the Chicago schools, you should consider yourself doggone lucky that Gina Jameson doesn't have a child in your school district. She would have the wrath on you.
would be marching through the school doors on a daily basis.
All right, we've got a weather update coming to you right now by Sportsman's Warehouse, 1940 Bridgeview Boulevard in Twin Falls with our old buddy Reese Widmeyer. Oh, man, everything you need, especially this time of the year. Outdoor adventure partner is Sportsman's Warehouse. Everything hunting and fishing and archery and camping and boating and everything you need, the best of what you need, is right at Sportsman's Warehouse, 1940 Bridgeview Boulevard in Twin Falls. Here now, Michael Rogers with a weather update.
Hi, everybody. Michael Rogers for MichaelRogersWeather.com. Weather action at your finest. We got showers likely today, 84 for the high, and that'll continue through the night. Scattered showers for Wednesday, also for Thursday. Otherwise, we've got some what is known as monsoonal moisture coming up from the desert southwest, which is normal. As far as coming out of it, well, we're going to stay pretty much in the clouds and the showers all the way to Friday night. And then Saturday, the weekend, with cooler temperatures, is looking real good, high of 83. Enjoy the weather. It's the only weather you got.
Thank you, Michael. Brought to you this hour by Sportsman's Warehouse. I love that store. I just love that store. I like to go in and just get lost in there. I love it. 1940 Bridgeview Boulevard in Twin Falls. Reese Widmeyer, the manager, our old buddy, Sportsman's Warehouse in Twin Falls. Calls are welcome and appreciated. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I tell you, when you think about the world news, and somebody said to me last week, oh man, all the stories you report on in the morning, wow, we're kind of going to heck in a handbasket. Yeah, we are. We can do this. We can change it. We can bring it around. Because you look at the numbers and you look at our populace of where still more than 80% of America believes in God, believes in values, believes in morality, believes in what this country stands for. But the problem is we don't do anything. We sit back and we're just like sponges. We absorb the minority's problems instead of fighting back and say, hey, go sit down, be quiet, and don't bother us. This is the right way. This is the majority rule ways. You sit down and be quiet. And please, don't raise your hand again unless it's to go to the bathroom.
But the problem is the majority doesn't rule anymore.
We don't take the time to exert our efforts of freedom, and we let these absolute lightning rods of incompetency take over.
They are continually trying to dumb down America. Truly, they are trying to dumb down the mass population of America, and then those who are actually smart, who are educated, they're trying to shut them up.
Here's the deal, and I'm very, very adamant about this, and you've heard me tell this story before. I will not weaken on my value system. When some committee asks me to do the Cowboys prayer before an event starts, I will do it. If someone complains, that is their right to complain, but it's not going to change the way I do things to stop for one person or a very small minority. I'm not going to change. When it comes to doing the pledge at the beginning of this program, I have had so many business people, so many politicians, everyone else around the area and outside of this area say, you know something? We appreciate and respect your patriotism. Keep it up. We're behind you. I'm not going to change for a minority, and if under God offends somebody, have a better day tomorrow, because it's not going to change.
I love you.
Thank you. We'll keep it a secret. Okay. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Man on the Street interview I saw not too long ago, and it started to create a great worry in my head about where are we going with the younger society, 30 and under, in this country. And of all the people that were interviewed, let's say 30 and under, most of them came out and said, the question was, what do you want for America? What do you want for America? And it surprised me that most of these kids that probably, they were out on left field, all dressed up. It was at some kind of a parade function on the boardwalk in New Jersey. Most all of these kids said, well, we want equality for everybody. We want everybody to be equal. Yes, we believe in equality for all of us. They kept saying the word equality. But do they understand what they're really saying is socialism and communism, where nobody is achieving? Nobody can set the goals and the bar and the standards higher to really be successful. Everybody's like a doggone sheep and stays in the flock, and everybody's equal. Everybody has a 1992 Mazda. Everybody lives in a little 3-bedroom or a 3-room home. Everybody makes the same income. Oh, we're all equal. We're all happy. We're going to sing Kumbaya tonight, and we're going to try to build a fire. No, that's illegal. We can't do that. We're going to eat raw mushrooms and marshmallows and everything else, and we're just going to sit here and be happy. I don't want to live like that. And that's not the premise of this country. But the younger generation, the 30 and under dipsticks, don't seem to understand that if you work hard, you can achieve. If you work hard, you can still obtain the American dream. And of all people, Ashton Kutcher, the actor Ashton Kutcher, he came out about 2 weeks ago with a speech that was absolutely amazing. It's on YouTube. It's hit, I don't know how many millions of people have followed that speech about, hey, listen, get up off your dead butts, get to work, and you can achieve. You can gain things in this world. You can have a better perspective. You can have a better family. You can have a better support system for the rest of the community. Gina, I don't know about you, but when Ashton Kutcher came out with that speech, of all people, I didn't expect it from him.
I did not expect that from him as well, and I think that maybe that will wake up hopefully, the younger set to say, hey, you know what, everybody is equal. We all have the same rights. It is upon you, as in said young person, to get up off your butt and make sure you do something with the rights that you have.
You took a college course. What was the finalization on that course? What was the title, etc.?
Which one?
Just recently. The one that you had, I think, with media.
You mean for my master's?
Yes.
Oh, I did gender. My thesis was how different generations talk to each other, basically.
Okay, but you have furthered yourself as a single mom, and you're trying to better yourself and do whatever you can to step up the rungs of the ladder that are going to create a very successful Gina Jameson, and you want to just better everything for your family, your son, and your future. See, equality with these kids 30 and under that have been given everything, and they're standing there on the boardwalk and they haven't got a clue who the president is or the vice president. They don't have a clue about what's going on in Syria. They're just dumbed down. And when they think equality, everybody should have the same, everybody's equal. That's nothing more than socialism and communism.
Well, their version of equality is this, that they can walk into a job, not have any sort of experience, and make as much or more than the top person.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, honey.
Yeah.
It don't work that way. You got to start right down at the bottom, just like I did, at minimum wage, and then you with education and hard work, you can get up to where I'm at.
Absolutely.
But until then, sorry.
There you
start
go.
at the bottom like everybody else.
And, looking at some of these kids that were interviewed for these man on the street interviews about equality, Gina, I wouldn't let them in the door of a conference room to even have a job application interview.
We have one of the only countries that offer all of the services to everybody. We are the most equal country that you are ever going to find. If you don't think so, move somewhere else and just see how equal you really are.
Yeah, enjoy yourself in outer Mongolia, chasing...
Go wherever. Go to China. Go to Japan. I don't care.
Go.
But you know what? You have more rights here than anywhere else.
Amen.
Go somewhere else.
But they don't realize it because they don't appreciate it, and they've never taken the time to study our Constitution and our value system. They've just listened to some of these left-wing nuts, and that's all they understand. I got to go. I got to pay some bills. Big tire sale going on at your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. I'm talking big tire sale. Oh, boy, they got the Ultra Z900 passenger car tire on sale now. What? It's starting at just, holy cow, $109.67. I can't believe it. And then they've got other passenger car tires starting at just $39.99. How about this for your light truck and SUVs? Wildcat AT2 on sale starting at right now $117. $15. Holy cow. And the Terramax tires starting at just $89.99. These are tires that are going to last a long time. And they're going to be absolutely safe driving tires for you and the driving that you need. I'm telling you, better stop in and check out this huge tire sale going on right now at your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. 7 locations serving you, and I mean serving is the key word. Stop in today and see them all. Your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers serving you. We still got time for a phone call or two. Give me a jingle. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I've got to comment on something really fast. There was a letter to the editor yesterday by a Chris Albert, Doctor of Veterinary Medicine, Lebanon Junction, Kentucky. This letter was one of the, and I'll use this word, dumbest letters I've ever read in my life. And absolutely from a veterinarian that doesn't understand the West or the landscape or anything else. As this woman, it is a woman, I checked this out, Chris Albert, I'm going to try to get her on the air this morning. I called her clinic earlier this morning, and I'm going to try again at 10:30 when Jack Euler's on the air. This woman was really running down the Sidaway Sheep Company for not going up and disposing of over 175 head of sheep that were run over a cliff by wolves. Now, my comment is this, and you think about this. How? How are they going to get up in the wilderness? With a backhoe? Can't drive it up there. Can't dig any holes up there. Are they going to dispose of the wolves with fire? No, can't set any fires up there. So really, Chris Albert, DVM from Lebanon Junction, Kentucky, when you're criticizing us out here in the West, at least have the common sense that God gave a goat, because it goes along with my sheep story, and understand what you're talking about. You, my dear lady, are not the brightest bulb in the fixture. And I'm going to try to call her later on this morning and get her on the air and have her back up some of her assertions.
Oh, thank you for making me giggle. That was funny.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm into every life a little rain must fall, but there's also a smile and a rainbow. We're going to be back in 6 minutes. Don't go away. I'll see you in 6. Oh, welcome back. Hour number 2 on a Tuesday. I honestly think I said something about a Monday the other day. Every time we have a Monday holiday, I mess it up, and I always forget that it's already Tuesday. It's already September 3rd. Holy buckets. No, what is it? Is it September 3rd or September 2nd? Let me check my calendar. It's the 3rd. I said the 2nd earlier, didn't I?
Yep.
Thanks. Appreciate it. That's plain and simple. You sound like Gary Cooper. Yup. Nope. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Hey, sweet, babe.
Yeah, welcome back to Zeb at the Ranch, and of course our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you, along with our friends at Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More at 459 Overland in Burley, and our good friends at Western Way Services.
From the canyons of the Snake River and all across southern Idaho, we're always the Georgia shores of Western Way Services. We care about our community, our resources, and this great land. Western Way Services is lending a hand, always at Georgia shores of Western Way Services.
Boy, I'll tell you what, if you've got cleanup projects as we look at all the things we've acquired during the summer, and you're going to try to cram them into the garage, and you're saying, ain't going to work, I got to clean this garage out. They've got all the dumpsters in various sizes that you can contact Western Waste Services at 734-6969, 734-6969, or in the Burley area, 654-9999. How many nines did I give? 9999. There you go. And call them and say, hey, we need a dumpster. We're cleaning a house. Well, by golly, they can help you. They can help you with all the porta potties. They can help you with the route service, picking up your garbage. All you gotta do is call Western Waste Services. Always at your disposal, 734-6969. And, also I want to say thank you very much to some dear friends, and we had one of their representatives attend the lunch bunch the other day, and that's our friends with Hanson Mortuary. Yes, Joel and his entire staff, really nice people. Locally owned and operated, Hanson Mortuary, 710 6th Street in Rupert, and they always provide families they serve with the best possible support and comfort, with the highest ethical standards with unquestioned integrity. They really care. Please contact them today at 436-5636. That number again, 436-5636. Joel Heward and his staff at Hanson Mortuary in Rupert, serving you. Well, let's go to the phone lines right now. And we get a chance to visit with a dear friend of mine on the air. And someday we're going to sit down and we're going to have a cold one and just visit about the way and shape of the world. And that's Dan Kish, the Senior Vice President of Policy at the Institute for Energy Research. Good morning, Dan. How you doing?
Good morning, Zeb. I'm doing well. How about yourself, sir?
Dan, I'm not going to kid you at all. This is a very serious time, I think, for the United States. And I know you and your personality, after you've been on this program for a long time, you're very concerned and worried. This mess, this absolute chaos that's being caused, created, and enlarging itself in the Middle East could really have repercussions against all of us here in this country when it comes to energy. What are your thoughts about what Syria might do to us?
Well, Zeb, you're absolutely right. I mean, Syria is just the latest in a, it seems like a never-ending movie. It's an 8-track of the mess that is the Middle East. And while Syria itself is not a major producer or exporter of oil, you've got the situation in Egypt. That means the Suez Canal, and that ships a huge amount of oil and refined products into the Mediterranean. And all of this affects it because it's a world market. And then you've got, of course, you've got the situation where you don't know what Iran's going to do. You've got the Straits of Hormuz. 20% of the world's oil moves through that every day. And, if the president wants to do something unilaterally, what he ought to do is issue the permit that's 5 years for the Keystone XL pipeline and get off the backs of the producers in this country who produce the energy and could produce a lot more and lessen our dependence on these places. That's my thought. We continue to be placed in a situation where people have to worry about their loved ones, and all kinds of bad things are happening, and the movement is just the opposite direction of what it should be in terms of finally saying, to heck with this. We're just going to move our reduce the impact of these areas by doing what we've proven we can do, which is using our God-given resources to extend our economic growth and put our people to work and devil take the hind quarter,
and Dan, here's my thoughts. And again, you're the expert. You get this knowledge crossing your desk 24/7. But honestly, I think Assad in Syria, like you said, they're not a big player in the oil market per se themselves, but I think honestly, if we make that initial strike, which I think is complete incompetency of telling them where we're going to hit and how long we're going to hit and everything else, and then Obama has just been absolutely amateur in his approach. But if we tell them we're going to hit them, he's not going to strike back at us. I think honestly that he'll aim things at pipelines. I think he'll aim weapons of destruction at shipping ports and at oil vessels in the Straits of Hormuz going towards the Suez Canal. I think he's going to disrupt the oil business to where overnight, and I talked to some people in Louisiana that are in the oil business, overnight we could see a doubling of oil prices right here in this United States.
Well, if anything, make no mistake about it, if anything happened to the Straits of Hormuz, it would be off to the races. I mean, we would be full-blown. That's not an area that could be shut down without having it. 20% of the world's oil coming off the market would easily double the price of oil. It doesn't take half the oil going. It takes, marginal pricing is, and the fears that would put into people's minds, because there are other spots around the world that are choke points as well, where there are the same sorts of problems, and what would happen is the invitation to wreak havoc on and make people know that they're there, basically just breaking windows to let people know that you can, would be so much that it would increase the likelihood that those areas too, the Straits of Malacca, through which a lot of stuff in the Pacific flows. The bottom line is this: we could have been doing much more, and we have been doing it on private and state lands throughout the United States. Our production is way, way up, and our imports are way, way down. And yet on those federal lands, the ones he doesn't want us to use, the ones that the environmentalists tell us, there's no oil, there's no this, there's no that, production is down. And so you almost have to work overtime to do that, and that's what they've done. At the same time, it does look like amateur hour.
Yeah.
And great nations understand this, and great presidents understand the relationship between these forces and our own innate strengths, God-given strengths, and you put them to use. You don't leave them on the sidelines, and that's unfortunately what he's doing.
Absolutely. Now, Dan, here's another part of this question that I really don't understand. I think it's going on. I think it's insidious. I think it's also un-American. But how much of the blame on the potential of oil prices skyrocketing can you lay on Wall Street and stock market speculators hoping for a bad day for us so that they can put a lot of money in their pocket? How much of the problem would you put on their shoulders?
Well, there's always some of that, Zeb. There's always people. I mean, part of it is that, I understand folks get upset about it. Part of it's that. Part of it is other people saying, if you're an airline or a trucking company or something like that, and your business is to deliver things, and you can buy oil for delivery, a month from now, and you think the price is going to be higher, you can buy it now. That makes the price go up a little bit, but you can put in a bid to buy it now and lock in that price because you think it'll be much more than that because of something happening. There's definitely that going on in the market. But again, if the government creates a situation in which we're more, those supplies are less available than they should be, and puts us in jeopardy by virtue of their own policies, then what that does is it forces oxygen into the gaming tables, where people do this sort of stuff. It's like Las Vegas, they shoot oxygen in the rooms, I'm told, and keep people up, continuing to gamble. That's kind of what these government policies do. There would be less speculation if supplies were larger because we were producing more and the Canadians could get more oil out onto the world market and to us, and we would be putting less demand on those areas in the Middle East for our oil. And so, whenever you have a free market, you're going to get somebody who's betting on the upside and the downside. Sometimes they'll win, sometimes they'll lose. But ultimately, if the government condones that behavior by making the situation worse, that's the real crime, because our government shouldn't be making things worse for Americans. They ought to be making things for better to the extent they can by, getting out of the way.
Absolutely.
Letting America go back to work, produce the energy that we've got, that God gave us, that we've got some of the largest supplies of in the world, instead of every time some problem crops up in the world, making ourselves more liable to reap the consequences, the ill consequences of some foreign policy disaster.
Yeah. Dan, I might have asked you this before, and you may have had the opportunity to scoff at me regarding my remarks before, but I'm going to lay this out for you. Do you think, if I haven't asked this of you in the past, do you think it's a possibility that this government and our leadership underneath this administration has this as kind of a plan to force and coerce prices so high that we are absolutely going to have to accept his green energy as a program from now on into the future? Could that be a possibility?
I don't know if this is part of it or if it's just incompetence. But the consequences may be the same. And it's been pretty clear from the president's own mouth and from the mouth of his Secretary of Energy, let's recount the bidding. Make electricity prices skyrocket. Pay prices for gasoline like they do in Europe. My policies will make renewable and green energy the profitable kind. And the only way you can make them profitable, since they cost more than the alternatives, is by making the existing things we use more expensive. So, yeah, they clearly understand this. That's why they've always fought production of oil here at home, whether it's offshore or up in Alaska or throughout the Rocky Mountains or any federal lands for that matter, is if you can, Ronald Reagan said it. He said, their plan is to, and it was as true back then. Their plan is to keep you from finding it, which will make it more scarce and the price go up. Mm-hmm. And these people understand it only too well. I know it sounds half crazy, but it's. All I can say is I've seen it with my own eyes, Seb. Time after time after time after time, you find a place that seems to have a lot of oil, and by God, that's the area they have to have closed down to oil. You find Canada right next door with the answer to our problems with all of their oil that they've got, and they've got a huge amount of oil. And all of a sudden we can't build a pipeline when we've got 2.2 million miles of pipeline in the United States. I don't see how you can arrive at any other conclusion.
Absolutely. Dan, we've got a caller with a question. Go ahead, quickly, caller.
Yeah, Zeb, I was wondering what your caller thinks about bombing Syria. I think that when you got two of your enemies fighting each other, I think you just ought to let them have at it, stand by.
All right, we'll have him answer that on the air. Dan, the bottom line, when it comes to bombing someone in the Middle East, especially someone as insidious as Syria and the backing by Iran, what are your thoughts? Because I think this is just going to create a bigger domino effect. What are your thoughts?
Well, I don't pretend to be a foreign policy expert or national security expert, Zeb, but I don't know. Again, I go back to Reagan. We had the Iranians and the Iraqis fighting a war. It was a terrible war. I mean, a huge number of people died, and there was gas used and everything else. But it was the policy of the United States to stay out of it because we didn't see any movement for anything, anything going forward. And sometimes, I think your caller, sometimes if two people are slugging it out, it may be the best thing to do is to allow them to wear themselves out. Mm-hmm. And so I won't pass on. I don't pretend to understand that. My gut tells me that number one, we're in this situation because previous policies weren't followed, or it's just a mess.
Yeah.
It's left as a mess.
Yeah.
So our options are less than they would be, and to some degree, I don't know about you, but I don't mind sweeping up after myself, but I don't like sweeping up after other people.
Amen.
And if the president's made a huge mess, he's the elephant, and the American public are supposed to follow up behind him, sweeping up. It gets a little tiresome.
Well, Dan, to wrap up our conversation about energy, and again, I really compliment you on your knowledge about what's going on, but if all of a sudden, let's say that gas, because of the Syrian mess, does go to $8 a gallon, double in price, diesel up to $10 a gallon, residually, the effect and the inflationary numbers on all goods and services delivered, whether by plane, train, or semi, I don't see how in the world our economy can take that kind of a jolt, literally overnight, and expect to survive.
Zeb, the price of gasoline and diesel are already too high. They're much higher than they should be, and it's hurting our economy. And there's a huge amount of underemployment in our economy as a consequence, along with all the other crazy policies the government's put in place. The only bright spot, seemingly, in the economy seems to be energy production. It's created 1/6 of the jobs created since President Obama took office. That would collapse our economy. Our economy can barely afford the price of energy now. Regardless of what all the smart people in Washington will tell you, the fact of the matter is this country runs on energy, and it runs on cheap energy, and when we make it more expensive by deliberate government policy, it's a sin against the American people and against the fact that we've got it under our feet if they just let us get it. And,
Amen.
If something chaps my rear end a little bit, it's that. We could be putting people to work. We could be driving down the price of energy, and instead they seem content or intent on driving it up.
Absolutely. Caller, I've got exactly 2 minutes left. Fast, please. Go ahead.
Yes. Is there any possibility that this could be taken away from the federal government and turned back to the states as to how many wells could be drilled and where they should be drilled on federal land?
Well, that's a good question. And Dan, what are the chances or opportunities for states to obtain more states' rights, if you will, in the production of energy that would help offset what we're getting from the Middle East?
Yep. It would be a wonderful thing, but the politicians in Washington would fight that tooth and nail because the vested interests in Washington and New York and other places like the idea that we can keep them down on the farm and they can allocate it according to whoever pulls the strings back in Washington. But one of the best things that we could do in this country, and again, going back to the fact that we see what happens on private and state lands with energy production, one of the best things we could do is have that decision being made locally by local states, by local people, by landowners who own that resource, and then they'd be making wise decisions instead of wiseacre decisions the way they are in Washington.
Very well stated. Dan, you're always welcome on this program, and I know you've got a very busy schedule. Thanks for taking the time to come on our show this morning. Dan Kish, the Senior Vice President of Policy for the Institute of Energy Research. God bless you, my friend. Take care, and I'll look forward to having you back in the future.
Thank you, Zeb. God bless. Always a pleasure.
Thank you, sir. Dan Kish, and some very enlightening remarks about energy or the lack thereof through this administration and what they're doing. This is frustrating to me, and I'll bet that if you took a poll of everybody that's over 50 in the audience, it's frustrating to you, your families, and everything. You're spending money right now. You're spending a ton of money right now, like I am, to go and see the kids, go and see the grandkids, or maybe take your wife or your husband to the doctor. You're spending double what you should be paying right now. Absolutely double. All because of an ideology of a man that absolutely does not have any heart feelings for America whatsoever. Obama wants nothing more than the perpetration of green energy. You're not going to stick a propeller on your Volkswagen and make it to the doctor's office. It ain't going to happen, folks, but this man doesn't care. Caller, I'll be right with you. Don't go away. I'll stand by. I'll get you on hold in just a second. When you think about life insurance, health insurance, retirement planning, employee benefits, there are two people that I want you to contact. And that is, of course, is Dean Cameron and his associate Todd Siemens. They know insurance. They know protection. They're devoted to serving others, and they're focused on what you need for protection. Please get a hold of them today. Cameron and Siemens Insurance, 436-4424. 436-4424. Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. Caller, go ahead, please.
Yes, Ed. I don't know what your topic is. I just got in the pickup truck, but I am fired up. I just completed 3 calls to Senator Crapo, Risch, and Congressman Simpson. I told them under no circumstances do I want to see the United States take military action in Syria. They've let our military go down so far that we better save what we got. Also, I told them that we've also got some senators calling already for boots on the ground, and I think they ought to let Senator McCain put them on and go over there.
I agree with everything you said.
I told them that we'll be boots on the ground, and we'll have every thug and terrorist and Muslim and everything else coming into Syria to fight against us, and they'll all be fighting on the same side against us.
Absolutely.
And I think it's absolutely the most stupid proposal I have ever heard of in my whole life. We're going to be helping our enemy no matter who we help.
You know,
and it's ignorance.
I could not have sat down and written a better script or verbiage than what you just perpetrated this morning. That's exactly what everybody needs to do. Not call and ask.
I've been thinking about this all weekend and Labor Day, and I couldn't wait to get on the telephone because I figure Crapo might very well vote for it. Since he likes to consider himself a statesman, and if he votes for it, Risch will follow his lead, and Simpson will also follow their lead. And so I don't think we're home free from our own congressmen and senators voting for it myself.
I totally agree with your remarks, and I respect you so much for the way you said that. God bless you, sir. Thank you very much for your call this morning.
God bless
Thank you.
And
That gentleman, thank you. He just summed it up. We need to call our congressmen and senators. We need to tell them, no! We don't want to put boots on the ground. We don't want any insurgency against Syria that's going to take effect against the United States. This is incompetency and idiocy being displayed by the most amateuristic presidency and administration we've ever had in this country, Barack Hussein Obama. Tell them no. Tell them no. I'll have my next guest on the phone momentarily. Don't forget, Labor Day is just past us, but you can still get all the red-hot deals right there at Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More. Oh, my goodness. Looking for bunk beds? They've got them. Looking for all kinds of curio cabinets? They've got them. Looking for hardwood flooring? They've got all that you could look for. All the carpeting, everything, and all the couches, and all the recliners. Everything you need for the beautification and comfort of your home is at Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More at 459 Overland in Burley. Please stop in today. Just remember that they've got everything, all your bedroom sets, your mattresses, everything you need at Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More. Stop in and see them today. Ladies and gentlemen, right now we're going to go to the phone lines. And I have a chance to visit with a young man that I think is absolutely the best when it comes to understanding all the facts about education and what's happening in this country with our education system. And that's Kyle Olson with EAGnews.org. Good morning, Kyle. How are you?
Hey, Hey, Zeb, good. Thanks for asking me.
It's a blessing to have you on the air because of your knowledge and your vast research about various things that are going on in the world of education. Kyle, one thing that really bothers me this morning, and you and I talked, I'll tell the audience, we talked on the phone last week, is Mama Obama's dietary plan for the schools. Kids literally, and I mean this, they're starving, they're not getting enough, they're not having enough nutrition to stay in school for the rest of the day, many of which are athletes after school trying to maintain the power to go out and perform athletically. Elementary school kids are eating less than what a Nutrisystem's diet would provide for people that are trying to lose weight, and these are growing children that need the nutrition, and many schools are opting out of the program. Bring us up to date as to what you see as far as what's going on with Mama Obama's dietitian plans.
Sure. Well, what's been happening is in order to get the federal subsidies for the school lunch program, school districts around the country have had to implement basically what the federal government wants kids to eat, the portion sizes and those sorts of things. And so as that's been developing and as they've been implemented and kids and parents are unhappy, school districts are saying, look, we're losing money, we're losing business. It's created all of these problems, and so instead of taking the federal money, we're just going to get out of the program and we're going to feed kids what they should be eating, or we value flexibility versus living under these very stringent things. And so what we've been trying to bring attention to as a website is these fights or these situations that have been going around the country. The latest one today is from Meridian, Idaho, where the head of the Nutrition Services Department acknowledged, she said, quote, the pizza tasted like cardboard last school year. And so what they're doing is they're creating these situations, these problems, really unnecessarily, because what they're claiming is that, there's a huge obesity problem and all of that sort of thing. But the first thing that they cut, typically, when they're reducing budgets, is extracurricular activities. They cut gym classes, they do those sorts of things, and they're trying to make up for that, I think, with these so-called healthy lunches.
You know, I've maintained, and you and I have talked about this privately also, Kyle, that I think that there needs to be almost a civil war against government bureaucracy of trying to basically starve our kids. I don't think you can put an athlete in a school system and have them leave for school at 7 o'clock in the morning, not have any snacks, and at lunchtime have a slice of whole wheat cheese pizza, a couple of grapes, and maybe some applesauce, and think that child not only is going to be able to sit in the classroom and study for the afternoon, but also be able to excel with nutrition that he's not getting on the football field or the soccer field. It's just not happening, and people, I think, need to rebel and stop sending their kids through the school lunch programs and start sending more from home. What are your thoughts?
Right, I agree. I mean, and to me, that's the problem with this whole thing, and we see this over and over again, where the federal government decides to have this one-size-fits-all policy, whether it relates to the economy or whatever it is. And this is a perfect example of where it doesn't work, because what it does is it decides that the standards decide how much kids should eat by grade, and not by gender, not by age, not by any of that, not by athletic involvement. And so basically what it's doing is it's treating a 200-pound lineman on the football team exactly the same as a 90-pound cheerleader. And so that is not, it's not practical, it's not reasonable, but that's what happens when you have Washington, D.C. bureaucrats deciding what should be going on in local school districts. And, it's a good example, whether it's this, whether it's Common Core, whether it's, any other issue. These sorts of things can be decided at the local and state level. We don't need a federal government getting into these sorts of things and deciding what should happen in local school districts.
Kyle, I would like you just for a moment with your expertise to kind of share with my audience what you think the cost factor of going into the garbage can is on a per daily basis. These school systems with these kids that won't eat the tofu or the leather pizza or whatever it is, the wastage when they go to the garbage basket on their way out of the kitchen area in the school, I can't imagine the millions of dollars we're throwing away daily.
Yeah, it's huge. There was a report done by the General Accounting Office, the GAO, that found huge problems created with this program. Increased waste, as you just said, increased administrative costs, all sorts of problems. And that waste has become a huge problem because just to kind of illustrate how ridiculous these regulations are, the school employee who is preparing the lunches is required to put these certain things on the tray. What happens after that, it really, frankly, is not the school's business. Now, I'm not saying the kids should be required to eat it, but they should at least go the next step and say, what is happening to the food? Is it being thrown away? Are there particular foods that are being thrown away? And those sorts of things. I mean, there have been schools, we reported and others reported last school year that there was so much waste going on, so much, throwing food away, that schools were actually talking about installing trash cans where they literally would have a video camera on the garbage can to see how much food is being thrown away. And so on the one hand, you kind of laugh and you think how absurd that is, but on the other hand, you think, these problems are so unnecessary. And if the federal government would just get out of the way and let Idaho school districts decide what they want to do, Michigan school districts decide what they want to do, that is where the local people know what is best for their community, what's best for their culture in their community, for their schools, for their kids. They know best. And yet we have these nannies in Washington, D.C. who are trying to impose their values, impose what they think is best on our local communities.
Absolutely. Kyle, I asked you on here this morning to talk a little bit about Common Core, but before we get into that, I also wanted to ask you about something else. I know you have a young family, young children, and I was incensed when I heard what was going on in the Chicago schools, saying that it was mandatory to teach sex education to kindergartners. These kids haven't even learned how to read. They don't know the difference between crackers and milk and whatever, and they're being taught sex education, and it's also promoting the gay and lesbian agenda as normal family structures for kindergartners. What in the world is this world coming to when we teach little kids like 5 years old sex education in kindergarten?
Yeah. Well, it's a good example of mission creep where the bureaucracy, the activists within the school, feel like it's their place, it's their responsibility to bring attention to those sorts of things. And so you look at the situation in Chicago, and they've got $1 billion deficit. Their graduation rate is under 60%. It's not a good situation. And yet, instead of really targeting and focusing their energies on those sorts of things, how to improve those situations and educational outcomes and those sorts of things, they expand their mission into teaching things that parents should be teaching. The parents, believe it's their place to be teaching those things and not the school. And so, in Chicago, I don't think is the only example of this. I mean, we see across the country these examples of mission creep where, schools see it as their responsibility and their place to be teaching these sorts of things beyond simply just reading, writing, and arithmetic.
I have had many people call my program and tell me I'm wrong on my resistance, if you will, to Common Core education coming into Idaho and, for that matter, the United States as a mandatory element of education. Common Core, that kind of sums it up for me. It seems like we're not giving acceptance of furthering our standards. We're relying on just a common form of education just to get these kids through. Am I wrong that Common Core isn't going to be really a program of excellence?
No, it's not. What it's doing is, to me, it's creating a national education system. you look at the promotional materials, like there's a video that the Pro-Common Core people put out, and their point was that you should be able, if you are, as a student in Idaho, mid-school year, are moving to Ohio, you should be able to make that move and then pick up right where you left off in your school in that completely new state. And so what that says to me is that you're going to have all states, or at least states participating in Common Core, teaching the same thing at the same time in the same grade. All at the schools doing it all at the same time. And to me, that is a national education system. That is a one-size-fits-all curriculum. Now, what bothers me about the Common Core debate is, especially among conservatives, is when you criticize Common Core, the Common Core proponents are quick to say, you mean you don't want standards? You don't want accountability? Well, if there's anybody that wants a more accountable government and higher standards, higher expectations of kids and adults in the system, it's conservatives. And so, of course, that's what we want. But what I find disturbing is that there is this push to standardize the system, again, by having kids in Idaho learning the exact same thing at the exact same time as kids in Ohio. So that you've got concerns about standardization, but then also this nationalization that's going on. And so there's a huge concern about that. There was a report that supposedly came out in Wisconsin the end of last week that will be supposedly detailing how much it's going to cost the state to implement Common Core. I'm guessing you would probably find that very interesting because it would probably kind of give you a clue into what will happen in Idaho. We're trying to get that report because we want to bring attention to it. But to me, it just, again, it creates, just like the school lunch program, it's creating all of these problems, it's creating confusion and those sorts of things because you've got people on a national level saying what should be happening in individual school districts. And then one more point about that. When you've got this standardization going on, what is being removed is innovation and creativity from the states. Because when you have 50 different states, and you've got governors wanting to be the quote-unquote education governor and wanting to have the best school system and wanting to have the best teachers and those sorts of things, they're going to compete in order to do that. But if you have everyone being judged by the same standard, having the same assessment, having the same curriculum and those sorts of things, then that innovation, that creativity is going to be removed. And as we've seen in America, around this country, and around the world, when you standardize, when you nationalize, that's not a good thing.
You just touched on what I was going to ask you. Where in Common Core, Kyle, where in the program is the door to open up for the students to reach for the stars, to go to the galaxies and beyond? Where is the goal setting in Common Core to really be successful above all others?
Well, I don't know that it's there. Again, when you have this dumbing down of the standards, when you have the standards being set for basically the lowest common denominator, I don't think you're going to be seeing that. And so the big concern with Common Core is that when it's nationalizing the system, you've got basically one or two different tests that are going to be created for students. Those are being created now. But then the standards will dictate the test, and then the test will dictate the curriculum. Because everybody says, "Oh, it's terrible that schools teach to the test," but the reality is that happens. And so either you're going to not teach to the test, or you're going to teach to the test, and so the curriculum is going to be boiled down, is going to be refined to specifically what is on that test. And so that, to people like me and many others around the country, that's a huge concern when you're standardizing and simplifying the system.
We have a caller with a question. Go ahead quickly, caller, if you would.
What is so amazing to me is people I know that work in the school district are defending this and saying how good it is. And I'm telling you, I am so busy that I don't get a chance to, study and learn this thing, because it seems like every day there's something new coming down the pipe from this administration, which is intentional and distract us, whatever it is. But when local people, when I talk to local people in the school district, and then other people who say, well, the people in the school district don't know enough about it. They're just listening to what they're being told. And I say, well, geez, can that really be true, that our local authorities in the school district are really, and two of the superintendents of local school districts are on the radio defending it, and I know both of them, and I know them to be good men. And I just, it's so hard to understand exactly how they can be that deceived and what exactly is going on. And I'll hang up and let you answer.
Okay, Randy, good question this morning. Kyle, what about it? Is there a deception out there or a naivete that people just they don't know and they don't understand, so they're going along like sheep? What are your thoughts?
Well, I do feel a little sympathetic for local superintendents, because the state made this decision, and they have no say in this. So it's not like the state said, oh, we would really like you to implement this, and then school districts have a choice. They have no choice. Now, that being said, I think superintendents, school board members who see problems with it should be speaking up, and we're seeing many of them do that. In fact, there was on Long Island in New York, there was a local superintendent who said, this is not good for our schools for a variety of reasons. And he actually called parents and said, we want to have a rally against Common Core. And 1,500 people showed up to this rally. And so a lot of people are concerned about what this is doing, but it's going to take administrators, teachers, school board members, parents standing up and saying, this is not in the best interest of our kids. Because what it's doing is it's shifting responsibility, it's shifting autonomy, eliminating autonomy away from local government, school boards, and state capitals, and it's shifting it to the National Governors Association and Washington, D.C. And so, to me, again, I said earlier, education fundamentally is a state and local issue. Your parents in Idaho know what is best for your children. Parents in Michigan, where I live, we know what is best for our children. And that is where the power should be, not in bureaucracies in Washington, D.C., because those people don't know what's best. They think they know. They think they know what's best for your kids versus you, but they really don't.
One final thought here this morning, and I wish we had more time, but there's another aspect to the Common Core that I'd like to have some answers on. And what about the data mining? What about the control factor of our kids or the government surveillance of our students in Common Core? What are your thoughts on this?
Sure. Well, the federal government is recommending to states to collect data on students as they're doing the assessments and doing the work related to Common Core. They're suggesting literally hundreds of different data points. Now, some to me are very relevant, like at what grade are they, what grade level are they reading, doing math, those sorts of things. Specifically related to their education, because I think parents want to know that. Obviously, teachers and administrators want to know that sort of information. But the data collection related to Common Core goes well beyond that. They're talking about they want to have information like your religious affiliation, your voting status, how much the students work on the weekend. So they're getting into the personal lives and issues at home. There's just all sorts of data. But then the other concern, too, is what is going to be the use? How is this information going to be used? And so, and one of the points I like to make with regard to this is, you look at what happened with the IRS. There was no accountability. Mm-hmm. You look what happened with Benghazi. There was no accountability. And when you've got kindergartners who have their identity stolen with very sensitive information in this database, if it gets hacked, where's there going to be accountability? And to me, there will be no accountability. And so you've got all of this very sensitive information that will be collected on students. And to date, there are huge concerns about the security of it all. And so to me, that sort of information, the government doesn't need to know that, and it would be best if they didn't have it.
One final thought on Common Core. Can it be stopped? Can it be changed? Or is the train too far down the track?
I do think it can be stopped, and there are some states that are looking at that. They've actually paused the implementation by taking away the money to implement it because it's proving to be very expensive. And so I do think that they can be paused, they can be repealed and eliminated. But that will be very difficult to do. But it certainly can be done, and it is being done. But I think to some degree it will be like Obamacare, in the sense of as it's rolling out, as it's being implemented, people are going to see it's very expensive, it's very cumbersome, it's creating all sorts of new regulations and those sorts of things. And I think at some point people are going to say, you know what, this is not in the best interest of our schools, of our state, of our taxpayers. And I think at some point, we will see it begin to unravel.
All right, we've got time for one quick call. Real fast, caller, please. Go ahead.
Good morning, Zeb. I don't remember reading in the Constitution where the federal government has anything to do with our schools. I've read it several times, and I can't find it. Would you kind of look at that?
All right, thank you, Carl. Real quick, Carl, federal bureaucracy involved in education. Originally, our forefathers didn't want the involvement with our government involved in the classroom.
That's right. The federal Department of Education started under Jimmy Carter, and it's grown under every administration, Republican and Democrat. And I think partly because people look at presidential candidates and they say, well, what are you going to do about education? And they're kind of in a spot because, like I said earlier, education is a state and local issue, and it should be left up to the states. But a president has to look like they're going to do something about it, and so they just continue to, create initiatives and like Race to the Top and those sorts of things, and they continue to grow that bureaucracy. But then what comes with that is people who have to justify their existence. They have to create new programs and new standards and things like that, and so it just continues to grow. But I think the caller's right. Education is a state and local issue, and that's where it should remain.
Absolutely. The best. Kyle Olson with EAGnews.org. Kyle, God bless you and your family. Thanks again for being on the program, and I'll be calling in the next couple of weeks. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
You bet. God bless. Very, very interesting young man and knowledgeable. So knowledgeable. Kyle Olson with EAGnews.org regarding Common Core education. Holy smokes, we've got to have a weather update right now with MichaelRogersWeather.com, brought to you by Red's Trading Post, 203 Fifth Avenue South in Twin Falls. My old buddy Ryan Horsley and the rest of the crew. They're always looking for good used firearms. Take them in. They'll make a great deal with you. And don't forget, too, for all your guns and ammunition and all the other accessories, Red's Trading Post in Twin Falls. Here's Michael Rogers Weather.
Hi, everybody. Michael Rogers for MichaelRogersWeather.com. Weather action at your finest. We got showers likely today, 84 for the high, and that'll continue through the night. Scattered showers for Wednesday, also for Thursday. Otherwise, we've got some what is known as monsoonal moisture coming up from the desert southwest, which is normal. As far as coming out of it, well, we're going to stay pretty much in the clouds and the showers all the way to Friday night. And then Saturday, the weekend, with cooler temperatures, is looking real good, high of 83. Enjoy the weather. It's the only weather you got.
Thank you, Michael. Brought to you by Red's Trading Post, 203 Fifth Avenue South in Twin Falls, an historic old town since 1936. Red's Trading Post for all your hunting needs. Hey, by the way, too, we want to remind you they're closed. No, they were closed yesterday on Monday. Naturally, it was a holiday, but they're open Tuesdays through Saturdays. Let's ride Highway 24 between Rupert and Burley. Oh, listen to me. They've got the 2014 bikes coming in every day. Now's the time to get one. Great selection. And try out the Can-Am 4-seater side-by-side. That is fun. And the Yamaha Viking side-by-side, they've got them all. They've got them all right there at Let's Ride. And a great service department, too, to take care of anything you need fixed up. They can handle it. And accessories, they've got all the accessories for you. Let's Ride, Highway 24 between Rupert and Burley, open Tuesdays through Saturdays 9 to 6. This is definitely where the fun is sold. We are going to take a little break, and coming up next half hour, we're going to be talking to, of course, Dr. History, one of our favorite segments on this program. And then at 10:30 this morning, Jack Euler is going to be on the program. We're going to be talking and trying to call a veterinarian in Kentucky by the name of Chris Albert. Chris is a she, and wrote a letter to the paper that was highly critical of Sidaway Sheep Company and the disposal of all the dead sheep. I'm sure if you read the letter, you had to raise your eyebrows and wonder, this is a vet? Not very bright, it didn't seem like. But we're going to try to reach that vet at 10:30 and see if she can back up her remarks. Might be on the phone. She might hang up. You never know. Anyway, we've got all this and more coming up on Zeb at the Ranch. Don't go away. This is where we always have a good time every day, and we appreciate your phone calls. I'll see you back in 6. Oh, my. Kind of a cloudy day outside today, and Michael said we might get some more thunder bumpers. Had some really loud ones last night, and possibly some more rain. We need it. And good morning. Welcome back. Zeb at the Ranch, and brought to you by our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations, along with some of our great advertisers, including Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More at 459 Overland and Burley, and our friends with Western Waste Services. Always at your disposal. Get on the route service today, 734-6969. Hey, before we go to Dr. History, I want to remind you that Chadwick Sports Grill, 139 West Main in Burley. Oh, the menu for this week is out, and I've got the senior citizen dinner special Monday through Thursday from 4 to 6 p.m., only $5.95. Today, they're going to be having spaghetti with meatballs, garlic toast, and super salad. Just $5.95. It's delicious. Everything's delicious at the Chadwick Sports Grill, 139 West Main in Burley. Stop in. You're going to have great eating and a lot of fun. Good people, the Chadwick Sports Grill. Right now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for Dr. History, brought to you by the new CSI Sage Truck Driving School in Burley, 878-5802, with our old buddy Lucky Bourne. You can become a professional truck driver. Call 878-5802. And now, without further ado, here he is, trudging along behind a covered wagon and watching out where he steps. Big oxen, big mess. Here's Dr. History.
Good morning, Zeb. How you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, good. Had a good weekend. It's nice to be back to work, though. So here we go.
Well, you know, I never am at a loss for people to come up to me and say, Dr. History, boy, that guy really puts some time and effort into all of his stories. And then I try to tell him that you have a staff of 17 people that write everything for you.
Well, that's supposed to be our secret.
Okay. Well, which one of the 17 people wrote this one this morning?
A guy by the name of L.P. Tier. At least that's the guy who wrote this article.
Okay, well, now
Never
what?
heard of the guy.
I haven't either. What are we going to talk about?
Well, remember the Alamo?
I do.
Okay. Well, did you know that there was one guy that made it out?
Was he the guy that they sent to Sam Houston? They sent him out in the dead of night or something?
Nope. This is a guy that they kind of wonder if he, in fact, the title of this article is, Was There a Coward in the Alamo?
Ooh.
So, not necessarily a good thing. But anyway, that's what we're going to talk about. So,
okay.
March 3rd, 1836, there was one man who decided to leave the Alamo and escape certain death, massacre. a massacre that 182 other men in the Alamo had decided to accept. So March 6th, shortly after 9 a.m., General Santa Anna, President of Mexico, rode into the courtyard of the mission of San Antonio. The last shot had just been fired, the last bloody bayonet just withdrawn. All about him lay dead bodies. They hung from the walls, across the canyons, from the rooftops. All the defenders, 182 Texans, lay across, like I say, all over the place. Tennesseans, British, Irish, Scotsmen, they lay dead, intermingled with about 1,600 of the Mexican army. The Alamo had fallen. Now, the surviving Mexican soldiers were pretty worn out. I mean, they'd been fighting for almost 9 hours. It'd been a bitterly fought and expensively attained victory, I guess, for Santa Anna. But there really had never been any doubt about the outcome. Now, pardon?
I didn't say a word.
Okay.
I'm quiet as a church. I'm telling you, I didn't do anything.
Okay. Well, they identified the bodies. They found the commander, Colonel William Travis. He was lying across his canyon. James Bowie was on his cot in one of the upper rooms in the barracks, surrounded by the dead soldiers. After considerable searching, they found Davy Crockett. He was found at the entrance to the church, almost buried under a pile of soldiers. And the only survivors permitted to live were a Mrs. Dickinson. She was wife of one of the officers, and her young daughter, and two servant boys, two young boys. Now, at Santa Anna's orders, all of the rebels' bodies were sandwiched with layers of logs and then burned, as many as possible. And of the 1,600 dead Mexican soldiers, they buried them and as best they could.
Okay.
But through the succeeding years, historians have searched for information concerning this final battle. And as with a lot of these stories that you and I have talked about, there's different accounts. But even the identity of all of the Alamo defenders is not truly definite. I mean, there's, and I've never been there, but there's monuments in San Antonio and one in Austin, Texas, and they both have different names on them. So
really,
but there is evidence that pretty much determines that there was one man who left just before the attack. Now, the Alamo had been 10 days under siege, 10 days, that hope would come, that there would be assistance, but at last, the men in the walls were informed of the hopelessness of their situation. Their commander, Colonel Travis, he got them all together in a group in the courtyard, and this has, been portrayed on TV and movies, but so for the first time, he revealed the facts. He said in a stirring speech, he told them that the opposing soldiers were the cream of the Mexican army. They were the best of the best. No assistance was coming to the Texans because there really wasn't anything available. It was too late to accept Santa Anna's surrender terms, so Travis said, an escape was impossible, but if you wanted to try, you'd probably be killed as you left the walls. His personal decision was to die fighting in the Alamo. So this is where he dramatically drew his sword and scratched a line in the ground across the courtyard, and he asked those willing to stay with him to cross over the line. Well, that was kind of a tense moment. Well, most of the men were not Texans, some not even Americans. They were hunters, traders, farmers, a few were soldiers. One was a professional politician, and of course none of them wanted to die, but it's obvious that something projected by this Colonel Travis's speech compelled them to cross the line, to accept death, basically. Well, one man resisted this appeal. He was the only man remaining on the far side of the line. Now, this poor guy, he was overcome by emotion. He sank to his knees, he buried his face in his hands, and he decided to try to stay alive. His name was Louis Moses Rose. And that's the guy we're going to be talking about.
Moses Rose.
Moses Rose. He was born in France in 1785, and it was really a rough time over in France at that time. Napoleon was going gung-ho, and Moses Rose was among the army of Napoleon. He stayed in the army as long as Napoleon was in power, and when Napoleon got removed from power, this Moses Rose, he was expelled from France and immigrated to the United States. So he made his way to Louisiana. Now, as we know, Louisiana's western neighbor is Texas, and at that time was a part of Mexico. but it was inhabited by a pretty fastly growing colony of Americans. And there were several minor revolutions that had taken place or had been attempted, but the Mexican army pretty well squashed them fairly quickly.
Yeah.
Well, in 1826, one of these revolutions, Moses Rose was in the army. He was a French veteran, and so he knew about fighting. But the uprising again was put down by the Mexican troops. Now, Rose decided to stay, and I'm going to need your help on a couple of these names of towns, and you may have been there. He decided to stay in a town called Nacogdoches. Nacogdoches,
yep.
Okay.
Nacogdoches, Texas.
Okay, so he became employed by a guy there who was a Texas tycoon, and his job was to maintain a freight wagon between Nacogdoches, Texas, and this other one I'm going to need help, Natchitoches, Louisiana.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Does that sound right?
You're pretty close, yeah.
Okay, Natchitoches.
Yeah.
So he carried the mail between these two towns. Well, so that's what he did for a little while. Do you want to take a break right now, Zeb?
It's a good idea. I'll tell them about our sponsor, and then we'll come back more and find out about old Moses. Okay. And would you like to start earning $30,000 to $40,000 a year in as little as 4 or 5 weeks? Well, then all you have to do is call Lucky Bourne at CSI's new Sage Truck Driving School in Burley right now, 878-5802. You'll get one-on-one over-the-road training and all the necessary endorsements. And listen to this, when you've earned your CDL, their team will even help you get your first truck driving job. New classes begin every week. All you have to do is call Lucky Bourne right now at CSI's new truck driving school in Burley, 878-5802. And now, back to Moses.
All right. Well, okay, like I say, Moses Rose was employed by this guy, but it was probably kind of a boring thing for him to do, just carry the mail between these two towns. So in 1832, he joined another Texan Revolutionary Army and was placed under the command of a guy we all know, Colonel James Bowie.
Mm-hmm.
And with this army, he again marched to capture Nacogdoches from the Mexicans, and the Texans this time were victorious, and they drove the Mexican army from the town. So anyway, Rose, with his part in this battle, he became good friends with Bowie. And there wasn't very many of them. There's only about 20 of them that drove this Mexican army, and they forced about 300 of the Mexican soldiers to surrender. Mm-hmm. So Rose was somewhat of a hero, I guess, if you want to call him that. So,
really?
But anyway, so after this fight at Nacogdoches, Moses Rose settled down to kind of a domestic life. He went to work at a sawmill. He just kind of hung around, didn't do a lot, but I think he kind of got bored with that. So 1835, war drums began to roll again in the fall of 1835, and a call was made to all Texans to enlist in an army to drive the Mexican army from San Antonio.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Rose, of course, he decided to join his old commander, Jim Bowie, and they marched with him to San Antonio. Now, Colonel Bowie assumed command and moved his followers to a small mission at the edge of town. Well, Rose unrolled his bedroll inside the walls of the Alamo, and now we have the Frenchman found himself at the scene of his last of many battles, and he was part of a small revolutionary army representing an unstable government. So things weren't real good for them. Okay, so the fall of the Alamo has been told a lot of times, and the important fact of the siege is that there were 182 men that withheld an army of over 5,000 for about 10 days.
Wow.
Now, Santa Anna was determined to obliterate this makeshift fort, and again, I've never been there. It's on my bucket list to go there, but I'm told it's not very big. But Santa Anna was willing to utilize his entire army to obliterate this little place down there. Well, after 7 days of bombing and attack, the new Alamo commander, which was Colonel William Barrett Travis, he, of course, realized that the end was near and made this epic speech that I just mentioned. Well, again, like I say, Rose, he didn't cross the line, and Jim Bowie looked at him and said, he says, you don't seem to be willing to die with us, and Rose said, no. He says, I'm not ready to die, and I won't if I can avoid it. Well, Davy Crockett was there, too, and he told him, he says, well, you might as well conclude to die because you can't escape. Well, it was mid-afternoon, and in full view of the Alamo garrison and the Mexican pickets outside, Moses Rose climbed the Alamo wall. On top, he was momentarily stunned at the scene of the death below because the ground outside was actually littered with dead soldiers, Mexican soldiers.
Right.
After a brief look at his friends inside the walls, he dropped to the outside and headed west towards the San Antonio River. Now, have you been there as well, Zed?
No, Ken, I want to just clarify some things that I have not done, and it's on my bucket list, too. I've been all over that area, but have not had the opportunity to really visit the Alamo and understand and appreciate the exact history from that area. So I haven't been there either.
Okay. Well, evidently the San Antonio River runs right close by there.
Yeah, it does. Mm-hmm.
He was wading across the shallow part of the river, and he suddenly realized that he was actually in full view of some of the Mexican soldiers.
Yep.
Well, instinctively, he turned into the town of San Antonio, which was really the only immediate shelter that he had. So now the Mexican soldiers allowed him to pass unchallenged because, well, it's believed that he was French, and he had kind of a dark complexion, and he could speak Spanish pretty well, and this helped him to escape. So he hurried through the old plaza, and he was aware that the town was pretty much deserted, or it looked like it was deserted. All the doors were closed, and no one was on the streets. And then about a quarter of a mile out of town, he heard the beginning of the bombardment of the Alamo, and so he could tell by the noise, the bombardment, that the final assault of the Alamo was about to take place. So with this, he quickened his pace and decided he'd better travel all night. Well, through the course of traveling all night, he tripped through streams, and he fell into beds of the prickly pears. And by dawn, his legs were so gored and pierced by thorns that he could hardly walk, and plus being totally exhausted. Well, in spite of his physical condition, he knew he had to get out of that area because, again, the Mexican soldiers were all around. So now, at that time, a lot of the homes in central Texas had been deserted by families getting out of the way of the Mexican army.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he found several of these homes that were vacated, and he was able to get in them and find food to eat and one thing and another. But finally, he did manage to get to a home where there were people. But there was an account in the newspaper that, oddly enough, actually had Rose's name among the men killed at the Alamo.
I see.
But anyway, he made his way to the home of a guy named Abraham Zuber and his wife Iola, and he was actually a friend of his, and the friend thought he was dead. Well, obviously he wasn't dead. And at the Zuber's home, Rose got his first good care. They tried to get the thorns out of his legs, and anyway, he told his friend the full story of what happened. And now this is probably a pretty good, reliable account because Mrs. Zuber had him repeat this account until she had memorized it pretty much word for word of exactly what happened. Now, a couple of months later, her son had been in the Texas Army. He returned home, and he was told the story, and he promptly recorded it and left the only written record of what happened on the third and last day in the Alamo, as told by this man, by Moses Rose.
Oh, my.
So I think, that this was probably a pretty good, reliable account.
Let me ask you a question right there. What do you think, as a student of history, would have been the mindset for this 51-year-old man, that's how old he was when he left the Alamo, to bear that in mind, that he walked away from his friends, his comrades, and walked away from the battle and left them all by themselves? What do you think the mindset was?
Well, I think basically he's thinking, okay, I'm a Frenchman. I'm not really an American. I'm not really a Texan. But others were the same way. There were farmers. There were ranchers. There were other people that weren't part of the Army. In fact, most of them weren't part of the Army. And I can't imagine the feelings because you know good and well all the people in the Alamo were looking at him as a coward.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not going to stay here and fight with us? Well, then, get the heck out of here, I guess. you know.
I wonder what would have happened, and you mentioned it earlier. Santa Anna had said there would be no surrender at a certain point. I wonder what would have happened, though, had they all opened the gates and said, we surrender. I mean, it would have been mass slaughter, I'm sure, of every individual in the Alamo. And this man had to live with that for the rest of his life, that he left his comrades, and basically they're dead and he's alive.
Right. Well, and this did follow him. I mean, he learned that rumors of his escape had actually preceded him, and he was he was generally regarded as a deserter and a coward.
Yeah.
Because, you know, he, as I mentioned, he did join up with Jim Bowie, so he was really part of the military. He wasn't just a civilian.
When
I mean, he wasn't. I guess I should back up. You know, he was a Frenchman. He wasn't an American, but he did join up with the Army with Jim Bowie.
Yes, absolutely. I wonder what would have happened had he joined up with Houston and the rest of them when they had the Battle of San Jacinto, and Santa Anna turned into the coward, and he would have been part of that battle. I wonder if that would have been some sort of a retribution.
Yeah. Well, you know, as you mentioned, he was getting older, and in fact, Davy Crockett told him, hey, you know, you're an old man. You're not going to escape. You know, 51, 52, whatever he was.
Yeah.
But, you know, his friends and relatives, they were pretty, they were not real good to him. And as well as friends and relatives of the people of the men who had died at the Alamo. You know, they considered him a traitor, a deserter, a coward. And now, as time passed, this abuse gradually subsided. And actually, in 1839, he was back at Nacogdoches, and he actually operated a meat market there. And evidence kind of indicates that during the week following every bullfight, his beef got a little tougher. So you can imagine what kind of beef he was serving there at his meat market. But he kind of became an ornery old cuss. If anybody complained about his meat, he might just lay him over his chopping block with a knife.
Isn't it interesting, though, that when you talk about cowardice with this man, Moses Rose, Santa Anna himself turned into a huge coward at the Battle of San Jacinto, and literally, according to historical records, donned women's clothing and tried to escape.
Now, see, I haven't read about that one.
Yeah.
I'll have to read about that one.
We have a caller with a question. Real fast, caller. I've got exactly a minute left.
Okay, I'd like to find out exactly what happened to Santa Anna. I know that he appears in the 1870 New York City census. He was in New York at that time. But a follow-up story would be great on Santa Anna. Thanks.
Let's do that next week on the Battle of San Jacinto and the Remember the Alamo cry, and how Santa Anna tried to hide and cover himself so that he wouldn't be arrested and caught. It's an interesting part of our history, not only for Texas, but for the United States.
Yeah. Well, in ending, Rose died penniless. He was broke. He was poor. So Moses Rose, soldier of fortune, veteran of several armies and battles, died in bed in the late 1840s.
Wow.
That's the end of Lewis Moses Rose.
You know, that was interesting because I had heard there was one person that had left, and I didn't know his name, and see, that's why I have you on this program paying you all the big bucks.
Okay.
God bless you, Dr. History. Let's do a follow-up on this next week.
The Battle of San Jacinto.
Battle of San Jacinto is when they turned the tables and literally surprised all the Mexican troops, and it was not much of a fight, boy. They were running scared.
Okay, I'll see what I can find for that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, you have a good day, Zeb.
Dr. History, better known as Dr. Ken Turner, chiropractor in Burley. Thank you so much, dear friend. Thanks for listening to Dr. History, brought to you by the new CSI Sage Truck Driving School in Burley. The number to call, 878-5802. 878-5802 with my dear friend, Lucky Bourne. In just a few moments, we're going to have another guest on the program. He just kind of sashayed into the studio a moment ago, and that's going to be Jack Euler. We're going to have him on the program. I want to remind you, too, about Sportsman's Warehouse, I'm sure Jack Euler would agree with me, that's a fun place to go. I mean, you can get lost in there, and really you don't want to get found, because there's all kinds of great things in there that you want to look at, check out. Sportsman's Warehouse, 1940 Bridgeview Boulevard in Twin Falls, with our dear friend, the manager, Reese Widmeyer. Everything for the great outdoors at a great indoors location. You're going to love it. All the hunting and fishing and the boating and the camping and everything you need for the outdoors right there, Sportsman's Warehouse in Twin Falls. Right now, let's send it back over to our main studios. We'll be back in 3 minutes.
And now, back to Zeb at the Ranch on AM 1230 KBAR. To reach Zeb, call 436-2244 or toll free 1-866-927-4587. And now, here is Zeb Bell.
Thank you very much and welcome back. Third hour down the stretch. And I have a very, very dear friend of mine on the air this morning. And there was a letter that was in the newspaper yesterday that I wanted Mr. Jack Euler to respond to. And it was from a supposed doctor of veterinary medicine in Lebanon Junction, Kentucky, that was really going after Jeff Sidaway and Sidaway Sheep Company over their loss. And this letter was written by a Chris Albert. Well, I found out that Chris Albert is a she, it's a miss, and we finally located a telephone number. And in just a few moments, Jack, good morning to you.
Thank you, Zeb.
We're going to have Chris Albert hopefully on the telephone, and Gina's going to try to place the call, so that should be kind of exciting.
It'll be interesting.
I doubt seriously if she'll take the call, but we'll see what happens. Jack, when you see letters like this in the paper, where someone from 1,800 miles away is critical of a sheep rancher here in the state of Idaho and really doesn't understand the terrain, really doesn't understand the sheep business, but is highly critical of Mr. Sidaway, what were your thoughts when you read this letter?
I think that letter tells a bigger story, and you have to be from the West to be able to realize the big story. And the big story about this is that Jeff Sidaway said right on your program a week or so ago that he has 9 bands of sheep over in the eastern Idaho area. And as a result of the losses he is taking from the wolves and what is going on with the wolves, he is seriously thinking about downgrading.
Yeah.
And when you think about this, you know, that downgrading to me is what I have seen over the years on the range. You've got the BLM that they have to live by the regulations. They have to pay to be there. They have to do a certain amount of things to even be on public lands. And then you throw in the wolves and what is going on with the wolves. Here is generation after generation of a sheep company or a sheep operation that has been doing the right things for so many years. If they had not been doing the right things, they wouldn't be in business today.
I think the letter is short enough, and I think I'll read it, if you don't mind. I think I'll read the entirety of the letter for those that did not see it in the newspaper. It says, quote, "The very first and most important rule of learning to live with predators is don't feed them. It's why we don't feed bears at national parks, and now they leave us alone. So what does the Sidaway sheep farm do when 175 sheep are killed in a stampede? Number 1, blame the wolves, and number 2, leave those 175 carcasses in place so the predators will come and eat them. No doubt he will whine that the wolves are devastating to sheep ranching. No doubt he will incur even more sheep losses to wolves, since he is, in effect, training the wolves to eat his sheep. Mr. Sidaway, you are a senator of Idaho. Please show some responsibility and remove those carcasses. Then make this simple change. In order to be compensated, carcasses must be removed. The wolf recovery was welcomed by the nation and funded with all our tax dollars. Many Americans feel vested in this venture, and we want to see it work. Chris Albert, DVM, Lebanon Junction, Kentucky. Jack, I think I'm going to have Gina. Gina just sent me a text. Gina, try that number I sent over to you, and we'll see if we can get her on the air.
Okay.
But I'm offended because of the fact I think that she thinks a sheep farm that they're all grazing in little pastures or something.
The people east of the Mississippi, we ought to break this country in half, east and west of the Mississippi, and I mean, they have no clue as to what goes on out here. I've worked in this wolf issue for many, many years, since 1999, and the realization of what is going on on public lands in Idaho and other western states, people do not realize it. They do not realize that these ranchers have to pay to be out there. They do not realize what you have to do to meet with BLM every spring, come to a grazing agreement on when you move them, how you move them, and the whole works. And the article is ridiculous because you cannot get on there you can't make a road to the sheep.
You can't use machinery up there. You can't get there.
Right, and you can't drive a truck in there to get them. It takes me back, Zeb, to a few years ago when we were doing cowboy country, and there was a sheep kill up between McCall and Bergdorf.
I remember.
And I took a cameraman up there. There was 99 sheep slaughtered on the side of that mountain, and there was 2 sheep that were eaten on out of the 99.
Same kind of a story.
And then we also found a dead elk that they had killed in the bottom of the canyon. But I took this cameraman and we tried to document what went on that day. I even did not allow the TV stations from Boise to go up.
Right.
I said, I have an appointment with the owner. He's going to take me, and you're not welcome.
Let's see if she's got her on the phone. Gina, was that number successful?
No, well, it was successful. It is her veterinary's office. However, she conveniently stepped out for a house call, and so she's not available at this time.
Oh, she conveniently stepped out for a house call.
Yes.
In other words, she's got to tend to a little kitty cat back in her practice, and she can't talk about her insinuations and allegations that she made against us 1,700 miles away.
Yes, pretty much. Plus, we've got Bob on the phone for you.
Okay, I'll tell you what I'm going to do, though. Hold that number and keep it, because tomorrow morning we're going to try it during the first hour again. I'm mad at her, and I want to let her know about it.
Okay.
Okay. Bob, good morning. You're on the air.
Yes. Good morning. You know, you can't move them sheep until the Fish and Game people tell you can.
That's complete. U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service.
So they can do all of their studies.
No, it's not the Fish and Game, Bob. It's the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service.
Well, whichever one it is, you can't move them anyway until they tell you to.
Yeah, but Bob, wait a minute. Stop right there. How in the world would you possibly take care of 175 dead sheep when there's no roads, you can't get any machinery in there, you couldn't burn them in an open pit, etc.? Really, this person's allegations are so juvenile and unthought, I just can't imagine how she's a veterinarian.
I can't either, and it's just like your guest said. She has no clue as to what the hell goes on out here in the United States.
Amen. Thanks, Bob. Appreciate it. Thank you. You know, really, Jack, when you see these kind of allegations, and you know as well as I do that she only wrote this letter to be incendiary against those of us that are opposed to the wolves and the reintroduction, I wonder how many other sources east of the Big Muddy, the Mississippi, that letter was sent to, because, it like you said earlier, these people do not have a clue.
They don't, Zeb. And, you know, it's just like us pushing for the last several years to get a delisting in the lower 48 states. You said the word incendiary. Now, Dan Ash is the head of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and Dan Ash called us in February and said, you guys are making tracks in Washington, D.C. on getting the wolves delisted in the lower 48 states, and I would like to meet with you. And he's talking about Big Game Forever and Sportsmen for Fish and Wildlife, which we have spent a lot of money and we've spent a lot of time trying to do this. And we said, okay, we will get a group together and we will come to Washington, D.C. and meet with you. This is so incendiary that he said, no, I will not be seen with you in Washington, D.C. I will come to Salt Lake. February of 2013, Dan Ash came to Salt Lake, and we met with Dan Ash in 2013, and it is incendiary. But the thing that, going back to the article, how incendiary is it? They have made promises to these ranchers time after time. They will be paid for their losses. It's been 2.5 years since any of these ranchers have been paid for their losses. And this lady is the prophet on this thing, and she sits out there taking care of cats.
You know, and it does bother me that, and of course I'm from Wisconsin, and the mindset of many more millions than we care to realize back east of the Big Muddy, the Mississippi, absolutely have this kind of a mindset. And here's a vet that you would think would keep up on national and current viewpoints regarding animals and the care of livestock and everything. And absolutely, you hit it on the head when you walked in the door and said she couldn't possibly be anything more than a possible small animal, little dog and kitty cat vet, because she has no knowledge. And when she used the term in her letter, sit-away sheep farm, I get the impression she thinks everything is in little corrals or paddocks right close to the main headquarters of the ranch, and has no clue as to how things are grazed out here in the West.
That's right.
Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Yeah, Zeb, well, if we could roll back the years, about 50, 60 years, and when we was rolling out baits with strychnine in them to control the coyotes so they didn't hit our sheep. We run sheep for years, and that was how we controlled them. It was with strychnine.
Did you see the letter?
We wouldn't have any sheep.
Absolutely. Did you see the letter that we're talking about that was in yesterday's paper?
I didn't see it, but I'm going to dig the paper out and read it now.
I think it's disgraceful that a veterinarian that is supposed to take care of animals and make sure that farm animals are held in their charge with all the medicine and all the possible care, that a veterinarian would have this kind of an assumption that's so stupid.
Well, she don't know what the hell's going on out here.
Amen. Amen. Fred, thank you, sir. Jack, go ahead.
Let me tell you about a guy that I've been talking to down in Nevada. His name is Cliff Gardner, Ruby Valley.
I know him.
5th generation rancher from Nevada. He has studies from clear back into the 1800s on ranching, on public lands and everything. And he said that, this is following up on what Fred had to say, the downfall of everything on public lands and the predator control and everything was when they outlawed 1080.
That's right.
And he says it's been going downhill ever since. And he talks about all the fences that they've taken out down there in Nevada, in the Sheldon National Wildlife Refuge. They've taken the cattle off. They've taken the sheep off. It's 574,000 acres. You used to have cattle and sheep grazing. Today there is no grazing. There's nothing but predators, which mostly are coyotes and flying coyotes.
What would you tell someone if you were sitting at a meeting right now this morning with this veterinarian, this Ms. Chris Albert of Lebanon Junction, Kentucky? What would you do and how would you inform her as to how absolutely stupid her letter was?
Well, it's like the conversation I had with Suzanne Stone from Defenders of Wildlife.
Caller, stand by. We'll be with you in a minute. Go ahead, Jack.
I told Suzanne Stone, I said, Suzanne, you have sat through the same meetings that I have sat through in trying to come to agreements on the wolf issue in the state of Idaho. And do you know what the truth is? And I said, there's only one thing that I would like you to do, and that is tell the truth. She turned on me and walked out. She will not. And they can't. They can't tell the truth. They can't stand the truth because the truth speaks for itself.
And we will try again in the morning during the first hour of our open forum, tomorrow Wednesday's program, to reach this veterinarian again and see if she has any intestinal fortitude to come on the air. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Yes, you didn't apparently make it to the meeting we had at the Tea Party because Representative Ivey from Utah said if we would get our state attorney generals to go ahead and get this government land sold to the people the way it's supposed to be done, we would not have to worry about BLM or Forest Service or Fish and Game or anybody else because it would all be in private hands. Well, Jack, you should get a hold of Representative Ivey in Utah.
I attended the legislature has a legislative committee in Boise that is working on this issue. We had the attorney at that meeting gave a presentation. We had the head of University of Idaho, who's head of the forestry department up there, gave a presentation. We had the Attorney General's office. We had everybody give presentations that day, and Idaho will not have a bill ready for the 2014 session, but they said they will have a bill ready for the 2015 session to take over public lands within the borders of the state of Idaho.
Doc, thank you for your call.
All of this is held in trust by the federal government until it can be sold. When it is sold, 95% of the value of the land goes to the federal government and 5% to the state. That would sure help our budget if we would get our land into private hands.
No question about it. Thank you, Doc. Appreciate your call. I just think that now, with letters like this and the feeling against the Western lifestyle is growing every day. You see it, Jack. You've been all over the United States. You've talked to people. The environmental movement has infiltrated the school systems. It's turned little kids against people that make a living from the soil or with animal livestock. And when I read a letter like this, and I'm going to go back to what I said earlier, here is a woman that is a veterinarian taking care of animals, and how she could write something so blatantly stupid against livestock producers, it amazes me.
Oh, I agree. I agree 100%. And I guess I have a little angst about some of the ranchers and things that have gone on this wolf issue over the years, but I feel so sorry for them at this point because they have no way of recouping anything. They used to get money. They don't anymore, and I feel sorry for them now, and we tried to get them involved on a different level years ago, and we didn't. But, there's something else that state agencies need to do, and that is they need to step up and say the wolf has an effect on our wildlife also, or the predators do. Absolutely. And the Idaho Fish and Game in the Peterson Hunting Magazine of September 2013 made this statement on an elk forecast for this coming year. Most of Idaho's bad rap as a result of wolf invasion is misleading. Now, that's for elk and deer. Now, this statement came from Tony Boudreau of the Idaho Fish and Game. They need to step up because the elk population has gone down, down, down. The only place there's good elk hunting in Idaho is down here south of the Snake River.
Caller, I'm going to ask your indulgence. Stay with us. We've got a weather update with Michael Rogers Weather. We'll be right back. Quickly.
Hi, everybody. Michael Rogers for MichaelRogersWeather.com. Weather action at your finest. You got showers likely today, 84 for the high, and that'll continue through the night. Scattered showers for Wednesday, also for Thursday. Otherwise, we've got some what is known as monsoonal moisture coming up from the desert southwest, which is normal. As far as coming out of it, well, we're going to stay pretty much in the clouds and the showers all the way to Friday night. And then Saturday, the weekend, with cooler temperatures, is looking real good, high of 83. Enjoy the weather. It's the only weather you got.
Thank you, Michael. And by the way, caller, stand by. I'll be right there. Don't forget a huge tire sale going on at your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Passenger car tires like the Strategy starting at just $89.48. Oh, my goodness sakes. And don't forget for your pickups and your ATVs, the light truck Terramax starting at just $89.99. Low cost, smooth handling, a great tire for your style of driving. Stop in and see any one of the 7 great locations for this great big tire sale going on at your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, and see Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, the Twist family in Paul, Lane and Rupert, John on Poline in Twin Falls, Randy on Overland and Burley. Absolutely the best in tires with a big tire sale at your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Caller, quickly. Good morning. You're on the air.
Morning, Jeff. I'm in a sense like you are, somebody from Kentucky that doesn't know anything about our region, putting in their 2 cents worth, and when people around here are telling us what kind of devastation these animals are causing, to just ignore us. And it kind of seems like to me, and it has for quite a few years, that the wolves were put here on purpose, and it was more or less to drive us out of public land, if you think about it, because now the elk herds aren't there, the deer herds aren't there. You know, our game animals are no longer there because they've been killed off by these animals. I'll let you go.
I appreciate it, Riley. Good comment, too. And I agree with him. I think the people that are out of this region that have no clue as to what's going on, and you can tell by some of her other asinine statements like Mr. Sidaway is training the wolves to eat his sheep. Now, this veterinarian doesn't sound like the brightest bulb in the fixture.
Okay, how about our wildlife?
Yeah.
Are we training wolves to eat our wildlife? That because they're killing elk. Every adult wolf will kill 24 or 25 elk a year. Now, you know, are we training? Should we have more elk? Yeah, I think we should have more elk for the people to hunt. But, and that's what makes our state go, because we sell licenses, we bring people in. You know, there's a lot of things.
Well, not only that, but I want to go back. What makes our state go? The selling of licenses and hunting a big game. Okay, fine. But then we're also talking about the sheep industry and the cattle industry.
That's right.
2 of the great big economic businesses that we need to stay viable as a state with a profit in the coffers. And for some nincompoop that calls herself a vet from back in Kentucky to say that Mr. Sidaway is training the wolves to eat sheep and that it's his responsibility to remove the carcasses like it's out in the middle of an 80-acre field on a farm someplace. I mean, the incompetency and absolutely the unknowing about our situation, our lifestyle, our land, our demographics, etc. I find this woman to be very repulsive, and I hope I can get her on the air and tell her that.
I do too. And when you do, ask her this question. What about our sage grouse? Because, you know, the sage grouse is the last bastion of the environmentalists to get us off public lands. And you talk to Cliff Gardner down in Ruby Valley, Nevada, and he'll give you a quick rundown on this whole thing.
I know he will.
You know, it's totally asinine about the attitudes of some of the people east of the Mississippi.
But I've only got 30 seconds left here, Jack, but the problem is some of those people cater to literally millions that take their words as gospel and twist those words in favor of what they want against us.
I know it.
No, you got talking to Mike.
Yeah, I know it. I agree. You know, I called up a Fish and Game Commissioner in northern Idaho not long ago, and He's from the far north, and he was upset. And I said, why are you upset? He says, I've been on a phone call with Washington Fish and Game for 5 hours. And he said, the first 2 hours was mine telling them what was going to happen to their big game herds. And he said, the second was when they read the letter to me from the Idaho Fish and Game that was sent to him in 2008 that said there's not an apparent problem with our ungulate herds as a result of wolf reintroduction.
We're going to stay on top of this story, especially with this so-called veterinarian, Chris Albert, back in Kentucky. Jack, thank you for taking the time to come out.
Thank you.
God bless you. Folks, tomorrow we'll be right here at 8:06. Don't forget, Zebeth Ranch. We'll see you tomorrow. God bless. The way things were, the way things ought to be.